In today's episode, Mark asks, how do you find the value in influencer marketing? What's the best way to determine what's working? This is a very popular topic, a very important topic, and one that a lot of folks in influencer marketing are not doing well. And it's not because influencer marketing is some kind of snake oil, although there absolutely are certain influencers who probably overpromise and underdeliver. The problem is that we're treating influencer marketing like something that's brand new, and it's not. Companies have been using influencer marketing for decades. It was just called something else. It was called things like celebrity sponsorship or celebrity marketing. When you look at influencer marketing through that perspective, there are very well defined ways to work with celebrities, to work with influencers, and measure their outputs, measure what it is that they're bringing to the table. So the problem isn't that we can't measure this thing, it's that we just haven't made solid, rigorous efforts to do so. So let's walk through ways we can do this to measure the effectiveness of influencers. The number one thing, as with any form of marketing campaign, is to set goals. What goal are we after? And there's different kinds of goals based on the type of influencer you want to work with, but that has to be set by your business strategy. The three major goals most influencers are can be effective at driving towards our brand awareness, prospect or lead generation or referrals, word of mouth, and conversions or sales. So it really is sort of, if you think about it in classical marketing operations terms, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of the funnel. What are the different ways that influencers can deliver those results? All of those goals are, again, things that we as marketers have defined in the past and can work with pretty easily. The second step is to then set our KPIs to match those goals throughout the marketing operations funnel. And I call it the marketing operations funnel because we know that the customer journey is non-linear, but in terms of responsibilities within our organizations and in terms of measurement systems, we do still have to have a quasi-linear path to measure on. So we do want to have that set up from the operations side internally. So what are the KPIs that measure those goals? How do you, if brand awareness is your goal, how do you currently measure brand awareness? And this is where the influencer marketing disconnect works, because in a lot of cases, companies don't have really good, rigorous systems set up to measure something like brand awareness. So for brand awareness, there are things like unaided brand recall, focus groups, surveys. One of the easiest ones that I'm always baffled that companies don't do a very good job of analyzing is, how did you hear about us? When you have an intake point for a newsletter sign up or a new deal, whatever the case is, very few companies ask, so how'd you hear about us? And leave it open-ended. Like, there's usually the companies that do have a drop down with like six things, and almost everyone puts in other because the six things that they picked were from a pick list from like 1997. So asking people, hey, how did you hear about us is a really important, simple step for things like measuring brand awareness. When you're measuring prospects and lead generation and referrals, that should be fairly straightforward. How do you track those things currently? Is it in your marketing automation system, your email system, and of course conversions and sales? Where are those tracked? Are those tracked in a CRM, in an ERP system, in an Excel spreadsheet in some guy's cubicle? Wherever it is you track it, you need to be able to identify the systems that go with the KPIs that are bonded to those goals. The third thing you do is you establish the metrics that feed those KPIs. So if sales is your KPI, what are all the data points that feed a sale? If prospect or generation of new audiences is a goal as your KPI, how do you track those things? Are you looking at things like branded organic search? Are you looking at things like referral traffic from outside websites? Once you establish the metrics, the KPIs, and the goals, you are effectively building a chain of evidence that you would use for any marketing method. But with influencers, in particular with influencers, you have the ability to to require tracking in ways that you can't do with, say, like earned media. If someone says something nice about you and you don't have a formal agreement in place, it's very hard for you to go and make changes or updates or things like that. When you are paying somebody as an influencer to do work on your behalf, you absolutely can say, hey, you need to use all of these tracking links. This is part of the contract. We want to be able to measure the impact of what you're doing. When you're talking about the brand, here's the custom URL, the custom 1-800 number, the custom whatever. But you need that infrastructure in order to be able to draw that chain of evidence and say, hey, here's how your influence is leading to business outcomes we care about. And if the influencer is actually good at what they do, they have actual influence, you will see that show up. You will see that show up when someone fills out a referral form on your website, and when they say, how did you hear about us? They say, I heard a talk by John Wall at your conference. They fill out the little text box and say, I watched a video of Katie Robert on YouTube. Whatever the influencer is doing, you should see that show up in your audience when you're working with them for whatever the outcome is. Now, for squishier things like brand awareness isn't squishy. It's just that most companies don't want to spend the money to measure their brand effectively. One of the most straightforward ways to do this, it's not perfect if you're not, but if you've got some money to spend, be running surveys in market you can use Google surveys and do a continuous 1-question survey, or maybe a 2-question survey like an NPS survey to your target audience, and say, have you heard of this brand? And then, what is your intent to purchase from brand X in the next 90 days? Or what is the likelihood that you'll recommend brand X in the next 90 days? If you're running those surveys, you can ask a third question, possibly. Have you heard so-and-so recommend brand X? And if the answer and you're serving a population of 1,000 people or 1,500 people or 2,000 people as a sample pool, if not a single one says yes, so-and-so recommend, I heard so-and-so recommend brand X, then your influencer marketing isn't having the effect you want, because you're asking people and they're like, huh? So there are very clear ways to measure influencers. You measure the value of influencers based on the KPIs. You map those KPIs to the value that they have to your company, and then you track the living daylights out of the influencers you're working with. And absolutely expect, if you make the requirements more onerous for reporting on the behalf of the influencer, then you're probably going to have to pay more for them, as opposed to just handing someone some money and saying, hey, just talk about us. So there is rigor required and effort required for both the brand and the influencer in order to make the measurement work. But you absolutely can measure influencer marketing. You can establish the value of an influencer, and you can determine what's working and who's working out for your brand and who's not. But you just have to do the work and treat it like celebrity marketing or any other form of advertising where you are being detailed and thorough in your tracking. Great question, Mark. If you have additional questions, please leave them in the comments. And as always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Want help solving your company's data analytics and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.